The cryptic symbols etched onto the yellowed paper taunted Sarah. Every night the whispers returned, louder and more persistent than before. The faint echoes of "come back" grew clearer, slicing through her dreams until they became nightmares. Kevin's sacrifice had temporarily freed them from Grey Hollow, but the curse was far from over. It had been months since Sarah and Lisa left the cursed village, but Sarah's life was crumbling. She had become obsessed with the symbols, convinced that they held the key to Kevin's fate. Her apartment was filled with scattered notes, books on ancient curses, and research on forgotten villages. The paper with the symbols was always close by, its strange energy seeping into every corner of her life. One evening Lisa visited, her face pale and drawn. She too had been hearing the whispers. "I can't take it anymore, Sarah," she said, her voice trembling. "It's getting stronger." Sarah nodded, her eyes dark and sunken from sleepless nights. "I've been researching. There's something we missed, something the village didn't tell us. If we go back, we might be able to end this for good." Lisa recoiled. "You want to go back, after what happened to Kevin?" Sarah held up the old paper. "We have no choice." The next morning, Sarah and Lisa set off toward Grey Hollow once again. This time they were armed with knowledge, though they weren't sure it would be enough. The whispers grew louder as they neared the village, pressing against their minds like a storm of voices. The sky darkened, and a cold wind whipped through the trees, carrying an otherworldly chill. The village looked more broken, more consumed by decay than before. The "Welcome to Grey Hollow" sign was gone, replaced by twisted wooden beams, as if the village had begun devouring itself. The air was thicker, almost suffocating, and the silence pressed down on them, heavy and oppressive. As they entered the village, they realized that time no longer seemed to exist. The once familiar layout had shifted, buildings crumbling and rearranging themselves in impossible ways. The narrow streets were now endless corridors, curving back on themselves like a labyrinth. "This place is different," Lisa muttered, looking around in confusion. Sarah nodded. "The curse is growing. It's feeding on us." Suddenly a loud, echoing crash startled them. In the distance a figure stood in the mist. At first it was hard to make out, but as it moved closer, Sarah's heart sank. It was Kevin. But he wasn't the same. His skin was pale and gray, his eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. He moved slowly, as though weighed down by the village itself. "You shouldn't have come back," Kevin whispered, his voice barely audible over the deafening silence. Kevin led them back to the church, though now it was a mere shadow of what it once had been. The once grand building was collapsing into the earth. The stained glass windows shattered completely. The cryptic symbols on the walls had spread like a disease, glowing faintly in the darkness. Sarah's eyes were drawn to the book on the altar. It was the same cursed tome that had claimed Kevin, its pages still glowing with unholy energy. But there was something different now. A new set of symbols was scrawled across the altar, symbols that Sarah hadn't seen before. "What is this?" Sarah asked, stepping closer. Kevin's hollow eyes followed her. "The village is a prison, but it can be destroyed. The curse is old, ancient, but it's not unbreakable. The villagers were the first to fall, but now we're part of it." Lisa looked confused. "What do you mean? What are we supposed to do?" Kevin's voice cracked with pain. "One must stay. One must become the guardian as I have. But there is a way to release the village itself. It requires a greater sacrifice." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "What kind of sacrifice?" Kevin's face darkened. "A bloodline connected to the village. The curse was born from betrayal. A village elder cursed his own blood to save the village from a plague."
I can't say enough good things about the Marikiti women's oversized chunky knit cardigan. This sweater is everything I've been looking for in cozy outerwear, and it has quickly become my go-to piece for fall and winter. The first thing I noticed when I put this cardigan on was how soft and cozy it feels. The chunky knit material is super warm, making it perfect for chilly days. The oversized fit adds to the comfort. It's slouchy in all the right ways without being shapeless. Whether I'm lounging at home or heading out, I feel wrapped in a blanket of warmth. Not only is it comfortable, but the style is spot on. The button-down design with the lapel collar adds a classic touch, and the cardigan drapes beautifully. It's the perfect mix of trendy and timeless. The length hits just right, giving you a flattering, elongated silhouette, and the neutral color options make it easy to pair with just about anything in your wardrobe. This cardigan is so versatile. I've worn it casually with jeans and a tee, but it also works great when I'm dressing up a bit for dinner or a night out. You can layer it over a simple top for extra warmth, or even wear it as a lightweight jacket. The oversized fit makes it ideal for layering over thicker tops or sweaters too. It's one of those pieces you can throw on effortlessly and still look chic. The chunky knit fabric feels really high quality. It's thick enough to provide warmth, but not so heavy that it's uncomfortable. After multiple washes, it still looks brand new. No pilling or stretching out of shape, which is a huge plus. Oversized fit comfortable and stylish without looking baggy. Chunky knit fabric. Soft, warm, and perfect for layering in colder months. Button-down design adds a chic, polished touch. Versatile. Dress it up or down for any occasion. Durable. Holds up great after washes. If you're looking for a cozy yet stylish cardigan to carry you through the colder months, I can't recommend this one enough. Whether you're heading to brunch with friends or just want something comfy for staying in, this cardigan has got you covered.
Only by spilling the blood of the cursed family can the village finally rest. Sarah's mind raced. She had never heard of her family being connected to Grey Hollow. But something deep within her stirred. Memories she hadn't known existed. Fragments of stories passed down in her family. Her grandmother had once told her about a forgotten village, long ago, where their ancestors had lived. Suddenly, it all clicked into place. Sarah was part of the bloodline that had caused this curse. "I'm the bloodline," Sarah whispered, horrified. Kevin nodded slowly. "It's why the village called to you. It knew." Lisa looked at Sarah in shock. "So you're saying, if you die, the curse ends?" Sarah's heart raced. The weight of Kevin's words pressed down on her. The only way to stop the curse was to sacrifice herself. But she wasn't ready to give in just yet. "There has to be another way," Sarah muttered, clutching the cursed book. "We can figure this out." Kevin shook his head, his eyes full of sorrow. "You can't escape destiny, Sarah." As the night grew darker, the village seemed to come alive, its twisted streets shifting and closing in on them. The villagers, those twisted, ghostly figures from before, began to emerge from the shadows, their hollow eyes fixed on Sarah. They whispered her name, their voices like a chorus of the dead. The wind howled as Sarah, Lisa, and Kevin made their way through the collapsing village. The ground beneath them trembled, and the fog thickened into an almost solid form, pressing in on them. The villagers' whispers grew louder, and the cryptic symbols on the buildings glowed brighter. "They know what you're planning," Kevin warned, his voice barely audible over the wind. "They won't let you end this without a fight." Suddenly the villagers surged forward, their twisted bodies moving faster than before. They reached for Sarah, their hands like claws, desperate to stop her from completing the ritual. Sarah fought them off, her heart pounding as the air grew colder. "We have to reach the church," Lisa yelled, her voice shaking. Sarah clutched the book tightly, knowing that if they failed, the village would consume them all. The villagers were relentless, their whispers turning into screams as they closed in. Inside the crumbling church, Sarah stood before the altar, the cursed book open in her hands. The cryptic symbols on the walls flared with an unholy light, casting long shadows across the room. The villagers crowded around the church, their hollow eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Kevin and Lisa stood by her side, their faces pale with fear. "It's time," Kevin whispered, his voice trembling. Sarah took a deep breath, her hand shaking as she placed the book on the altar. She could feel the weight of the curse pressing down on her, the whispers of the villagers growing louder. The ancient symbols on the book glowed brighter, and the air in the church grew colder. Sarah's heart raced as she picked up the ceremonial dagger that had been lying on the altar. It was old, its blade tarnished by time, but it still held the power of the curse. With trembling hands, Sarah pressed the blade against her palm, drawing a thin line of blood. The villagers screamed in unison, their ghostly forms writhing in agony as the ritual began. "Are you sure about this?" Lisa asked, her voice barely audible over the screams. Sarah nodded. "It's the only way." As her blood dripped onto the pages of the cursed book, the ground beneath them trembled violently. The villagers screamed louder, their forms disintegrating into smoke as the curse began to unravel. Suddenly, the walls of the church began to collapse, and the villagers' screams turned into a deafening roar. The air was thick with energy, and the village itself seemed to be tearing apart. In a final surge of power, the cursed village of Grey Hollow imploded, its buildings crumbling into dust, its twisted streets folding in on themselves. The villagers, once lost to the curse, were finally freed, their spirits dissolving into the air like smoke. The oppressive silence that had filled the village was gone, replaced by a sense of peace. Sarah stood amidst the ruins of the church, her hand still bleeding. Kevin was gone, his spirit freed from the curse. Lisa stood beside her, her face pale but relieved. "It's over," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with exhaustion. Lisa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "We did it," The village was gone, reduced to nothing but dust and memory. The curse had been broken and the souls of the villagers were finally at rest. As Sarah and Lisa made their way back to their car, the weight of what they had done settled over them. They had lost Kevin, but they had saved countless others from the curse of Grey Hollow. As they drove away, the sun began to rise, casting a golden light over the empty landscape. The village was gone, but its memory would live on.